Dokutsu Monogatari. This is Cave Story, made by Daisuke Amaya and is what I consider the best game ever made. Hyperbole, true. By technical standards, this game looks like something your grandfather would be playing. Visually, unless your eyes are already pre-tuned to pixel art and games similar to it, it's a mess. None of that stuff matters to me. Graphics and tech is meaningless fluff to what games can offer, and the appeal of Cave Story is its gameplay, story, and charm. In my mind, Cave Story is the closest one can get to the perfect beginner's game. Obviously that kind of statement is proven to fail the second it's tested, but the slow progression of difficulty and requirements on the player's behalf is paced excellently. There is some tedious busy work the game throws at you. We'll get to that when we get to it. But I can't think of another game that would be simpler and easier for people to understand as first-time players. I would also preface, the game isn't just easy. We will also get to that when we get to it. Firstly, I would recommend stopping the video and playing the game. It's free and available pretty easily. I will be covering the whole game, so a spoiler warning from the get-go. If you have any intentions of playing Cave Story, do it now. From the second you enter this game, the hand-holding is out the window. Either learn the movement or die to spikes. With how short the game over screen is, you are never more than one click away from overcoming whatever did you in. Path blocked by a star, I guess. Go to the old man's house and pilfer his gun. Problem solved. Fire blocking your path? Kill the UFO jellyfish and collect its blood to put out the fire. I know it's called juice. I choose to believe our character is just savage. No problem presented doesn't have its solution too far away. If something doesn't make too much sense, keep playing, and eventually it'll clear up on its own. The story of this game isn't anything too complicated to look into. You play as a robot exploring this vast floating island, attempting to thwart the Doctor's plan to take over the world. By the time you rolled up, he may as well have won. The local hero is dead, every area is in disarray, and the two strongest people here are under his control. Most of the good guys are preparing to run away, until you show up and fix everything. Build a bomb here, grab some dogs there, fail this jump 1,000 times, fight a couple bosses, and before you know it, game's over. Isn't that easy, is it? Lots of smaller things happen in between. Firstly, I like the story quite a lot. Barring a certain contrivance, it all comes together quite nicely. You, the robot named Quote, travel the island helping pretty much every non-hostile NPC other than these Mimiga slaves who are dead set in becoming bioweapons. You even help this old man whose gun you stole by giving it back and getting a better one. Despite how simple the story is, it has its sad and dark moments. The fight with frenzied Toroko feels awful. Not just because she was one of the few nice people we saw early on, but her friend King gets killed in front of her while trying to rescue her. Coming back to the egg corridor only to see broken eggs, defective dragons, and insects running in frenzy feels really bleak. Coming back to the Mimiga village around the end of the game only to find it empty, losing every inhabitant it had, feels really isolating. This game will make you care a whole lot despite giving you really little to work on. The Doctor's reason for all the violence and anguish are painfully simple. He wants to take over the world with his army of frenzied Mimigas. Did I want a more nuanced reason? Maybe. Do I need it? No. If anything, it makes it way more satisfying than to pummel him to pieces. There is another story-relevant bit, however, we'll save that for later. Now, it's time for action. The gameplay of Cave Story is its shining light. For a game with hard Mega Man and Metroid DNA, it creates its own feel and style for some of the best 2D side-scrolling shooting I've ever done. As your typical gunslinging robot, Code has to protect himself from all the massive denizens in this cave. Big birds, helicopter blobs, bats. So many bats. Homing cotton balls, ghosts, electric fans? Nightmares beyond my strongest comprehension. You even tango with mushrooms. And this serial killer frog. Variety is at an all-time high with what you kill. Same to be said for what you kill with. The Polar Star is a basic dingy pistol, serviceable all the way and all the time, and will likely be replaced really early the second you see a machine gun. Speaking of, the machine gun. Take it. The alternative is unending pain. This Gatling gun fires with enough force to become a substitute jetpack, and will become your platforming crutch for a major chunk of the game. It does fall off in damage around the end, but for all it offers, well worth your time. The rocket launcher is your average boss melter. Or at least that's what I would say if it didn't suck. With the amount of projectiles most bosses hurl at you, and the minimum amount of rockets you will have, and the plethora of weapons built for far more pain to specific bosses, you will almost never find a comfortable use for this thing. I've played this game 3 damn times just for this recording, and even now, I don't think there was any boss that really was successful because of it. The fireball is my favorite weapon in the game. Santa came early and left me his best flamethrower. Used correctly, it can demolish a lot of the early game monsters and melt through some of the beefier bosses. The bubbler is a waste of time. Don't fool yourself into thinking it can work, or can even be used. No bosses, no enemies. Unless you're an obsessive weapon collector, like me, let this piece of shit burn at the bottom of the Mimiga bonfire. The knife is my favorite weapon, since it can be traded for the nemesis. Nah, I'm joking. I would never. Not when you gave it to me, King. Knife is both a boss killer and a regular enemy killer, depending on the level. Level 2 is a big knife, and is the optimal method to mincing Monster X. Level 3 is the coolest shit in this game, as a Spirit of King guides a spiral of blades to tear everything around you to shreds. Regardless, it can be traded for the other best weapon in the game. The Nemesis is a compressed thunder gun. I don't know how Curly found one, or this tiny dude, but it can turn whatever is left of this game into dust. It does require you to trade the knife for it, so it might as well not even exist. But wait, our piddly little Polar Star has some additional uses. By rejecting the machine gun and sticking to this, much later in the labyrinth, you can fuse it with the fireball to create the snake. It can shoot through walls, but honestly, with the kind of firepower you can acquire, it's a pretty worthless weapon. Especially at this point in the game, where you really need something good. All the weapons work on a level system. Every one of our weapons must be fueled through stars. These stars are dropped by our enemies, upon which you leave stronger than when you started. Weapons go all the way from measly level 1s to powerful level 3s. However, none of these upgrades are permanent. Get hit too many times while holding a specific weapon and you'll see it drop all the way back to level 1. Funnily enough, the Nemesis is at its strongest at level 1 and the weakest at level 3. All the more reason to not use it and stick to the knife. The bosses in this game are some of the most fun I've ever put to rest. Here's a brief rundown on how to fight them and how they are in general. Balrog is a sentient soapbox toaster thing who serves misery and will lazily crush you with both his missiles, orbs, and body. For his first 2 fights, the Polar Star can deal with him effectively, however in his last fight, Fireball just completely trounces him. Igor is all bark and no bite. His energy blast is easy to dodge and he barely puts up a good fight. Missiles end him pretty fast, but even just spamming the Polar Star will do him in. When collecting bomb parts, Misery transforms Balrog into a Balfrog and lets him loose on you. The frogs are nothing to cry over and his energy barrage can be completely ignored. Spam Fireball and he will die in 2 to 3 rotations. Curly Brace is a badass machine gun robot just like you. She is the most popular character in the game. Watch out for the Mimigas who will dive at you, and Curly's barrages can and will rip you to shreds. Right when you and Misery are about to square off, Omega interrupts your fight. He is nothing even remotely complicated with the right tools, that tool being the fireball. With enough spam and finger pain, he'll go down in seconds. Conversely, for those who don't want carpal tunnel, the machine gun can work just as well. Rabbit Toroko is really strong. The massive cinder blocks she throws at you will end you in 3 to 4 hits. Also, the blocks blow up and turn into flowers. These flowers hurt when they're stepped on. She isn't too hard to bait into a pattern and can be easily exploited. Again, it's fireball for the win. It's almost like this weapon's broken or something. Rest in peace, kid. Monster X is a difficulty spike. This railway tank has way too many projectiles to be fun, and he will use all of them to make you rage quit as fast as he can. I recommend breaking down his movement pattern slowly and using the missiles to destroy the seals. Once his face is out, spam level 2 knives into his face close up to melt him. Core is a really long fight. The multiple projectile sources will give you a headache and expect to die multiple times. From a distance, Machine Gun will be really good at chopping up the incoming projectile as well as damaging him. When the main head's close enough, missile salvos and level 2 knife spam will churn through his health bar really fast. Watch out for the massive projectiles. 30 damage is enough to one-shot you instantly. Ironhead's my favorite boss in the game. He comes crashing into your face and is easily the most high-octane fight in the game. At this point, stop caring about the optimal or best method and just have fun. Prefer to use a knife and Polar Star for this fight since they shoot straight consistently. Also, beating him without taking any damage rewards you with the Alien badge. The sisters are really hard if you're not able to break up their tempo. Just shoot a rocket into their mouths to shut them up. Otherwise, face the massive fire barrage that follows. Nothing to scoff at, but they are really predictable. Before we approach the final few bosses, I've got grievances to air. This game isn't perfect, it's got its fair few problems. For one, the early game has 2 chores that really drag on the section unnecessarily. Please stop sending me after the UFO. Later on, Jenka tells you to track down her 5 pups. The pups are scattered really far apart. Again, you will get sick of this section after the 3rd puppy. At least they're pretty cute when they're, barking at you. Secondly, it's the contrivance. After the fight with Monster X, you enter this room where Professor Booster falls way down from the ceiling. If you talk to him, you get the Booster V.8, a piece of shit jetpack that can barely fly a full inch. After you get the jetpack, Booster dies. It's pretty sad the first time you see it, however then you see the alternative. If you do this jump perfectly, preferably with the machine gun, you can ignore Booster, which somehow means he lives. He comes back sometime later in the game and gives you the Booster V2.0, the greatest jetpack in gaming history. The obvious question being, how the hell did he survive? By storytelling logic, he gritted his teeth when he realized he would die alone, got his shit together, rebuilt his jetpack, rewired the teleporter, and got better. It's just messy for me to have the logic around, and I feel like there were other ways this could have been handled. Outside of that, all the other problems in this game can be completely ignored. We reach the surface right before the end. Take in the relaxing music and gentle ambience. Oh hey Igor, what you been up to? If you climb this wall, it leads you to the star, health and missile cache. Use it. First boss here is Misery. She's had about enough of waiting around to fight us, which is good since so have I. Jetpack 2.0 will let you dodge all of her lightning attacks and orbs really easily. Knife and machine gun will deal with her decently fast. We've reached the point where no specific weapon is really effective. The Doctor is finally here for battle. He's dosed up on red flowers and is ready to start firing red lasers. Ironically, Snake is pretty good for this phase of the fight. The red crystal following him will block almost any attack though. After being sufficiently damaged, the Doctor loses control over the crystal and becomes the Enraged Doctor. He's still really basic, dodging his physical charges when he preps his battle avalanche. Just hit him with the fireball. Again, this phase won't last that long. Finally, the Doctor has melted in front of us, Misery is gone, it's time to end this game. Or is it? Right as we approach the core, Misery stops us, trying to bargain, when the Doctor re-emerges in energy form. He possesses Misery and the red crystal possesses Sue. As he reactivates the core, This fight is really hectic, and also really awesome. With the epic music going, Misery summoning monsters and missiles, rabbits who spin dashing towards you, the undead core firing, flaming boulders, spinning lava blades, and massive laser balls. I generally prefer to focus on Sue, since she is the most aggressive and also will probably faint before the rest of them. Then I go for Misery since she isn't that hard to deal with, however her summons can get out of hand from the blobs and missiles. Finally, to destroy the core, you can bring the Nemesis, which will really ruin him, but also level 2 missiles or machine guns. Once the undead core has been killed, the island starts to crumble. You and Sue run off and flee to the side of the island and prepare to jump. No sense in waiting, you both hurtle off to your doom as the island falls. Nah, the island does fall and probably blow up, but you guys get caught out of the air by Kazuma's dragon. Did I mention the dragon? Or Kazuma? I glossed over a lot, but it doesn't matter. We're here, the end of Cave Story. What a satisfying end indeed. Or is it? Nah, it's really over. This is the end of the game. Thanks for watching. What do you mean there's a true ending? Unsurprisingly, Cave Story has multiple endings, the quality of which depend on both how tired you are of the game or how you Google the true ending to get it, since there is no way you got it first time, given how esoteric and complicated the method for getting the true ending even is. Firstly, do you remember the machine gun? Ditch that shit. Stick to the Polar Star since you'll need it given what's coming. Forget the snake, that is even more worthless for what approaches. Way later on, when you get to the labyrinth, this frog doctor will ask you to clean out this room above his clinic. Fight the diseased Balrog thingy, it's not hard, use literally anything. Grab the cure-all and give it back to him. He will use it to cure Curly. Make sure to exhaust all dialogue from Curly always. And then, make sure to exhaust the dialogue from the frog nurse, because otherwise, you're gonna ruin the entire game. Now we get this jump. This heinous jump. If you had the machine gun, this would be easy. But we want the best weapon for later, so we need to jump this perfectly. There is no correct way. People have told me about jumping on the little red stain over here, but I don't know if that works. Trial and error. This part's crucial. Just before the fight with the core, go ahead of Curly and grab this cable. You cannot save once you enter, so whenever the core kills you, remember to get the cable. After the fight, when Curly gives you the bubble, interact with her to hook her body with the cable. Then continue as per normal until you reach this jump. Jump into this house. This is the second worst jump in the game. Attempt it, hope it works. If it doesn't, reset all the way from the start of the waterworks. In the house, leave Curly on the bed. Then go to the bookshelf and you find a book on training flooded robots. We're just going to ignore how good a coincidence that is. After reading it, use your newly gained knowledge to drain Curly, after which she will reactivate. Once she falls asleep, use the cable again on her and take her with you. Finally, once you beat Ironhead, you two will be separated, but this time it's as intended. When you approach Booster, he'll give you his V2 jetpack. Use it to reach the old hermit from the beginning of the game. He will be really pissed that you stole his gun, but after he sees that you spent this long using it, he'll give it back to you after he gets compelled. With some upgrades. Say hello to the Spur. This is a railgun, and it'll nuke every single boss up ahead. The reason I said the missiles were good for the sisters is because they're actually not, and it's actually just using the Spur. It's horrifically overpowered, and it is more than worth the pain from before. When we're climbing the outer wall, there is a small opening found halfway up that leads us to a small room with a chest surrounded by spikes. This chest contains the Nikamura counter, an item necessary for the true ending. If you thought the core was a cryptic problem, now we get to the most painful part of this entire operation. Once you get to the plantation, you'll need to take some very cryptic steps. First, duck down into the small corner where you find a Cthulhu boy. He'll be looking at Curly. Turns out, she lost all her memories. To fix that, he tells us to find the mythical Ma Pignon, a mushroom capable of conveniently curing amnesia. This fungus is hiding way out back in the spot near Arthur's grave. He will quiz you for the mushroom badge. This quiz is a convoluted mess, just Google the right answers. Even for a yes and no proposition, this is heady. After you get the mushroom badge, you need to inspect it to find out that it's completely useless. Now, we piss him off and kill him. You take his corpse back to Curly. You give it to her, and amnesia's gone. Exhaust all of her dialogue and she will give you the Iron Bond, an item that basically is proof that you have unlocked the true ending. This is the real last cave, made for boosting and serves as a warning for what's coming. In this cave, you encounter the Red Devil. This guy is piss easy. Just stand here, and when he jumps, walk over here. Fight over. This hallway is complete bullshit. I don't even know how a person clears this without the spur or snake. Probably the one place I can think of where the bubbler could maybe do something, and even then, I'm not testing to find out. You take on the doctor as per usual, all in a day's work, and then while running out, enter the prefab building over here. Inside this is a hole. Now, just in case you aren't either interested or afraid of one of the most soul-grinding dungeons ever, interact with the bookshelf and it will send you out. As for the rest of us... Welcome to Hell. It's called the Sacred Grounds, or in other versions, the Bloodstained Sanctuary. Did you practice dying in the last cave? Now we're in the final exam, and if you don't finish under 20 minutes, nobody's winning. Don't expect to finish this in first try. It took me months of constantly grinding down in this, dying over and over again to spikes, spears, cinder blocks, ground pounds, my own poor motor coordination. Down in this bit, you'll find Curly, lying down. Tow cable and connect. Once she wakes up, things get fun. She's holding the Nemesis, and if you brought your own, you'll have a really good time shooting everything with impunity. You melt everything in sight, just avoid stars. These areas are going to test both your patience and skill to the limit. Even after years of playing this game, I get sweaty trying to not fumble in the later parts. Finally, after all of that, you meet the massive cinder block. Heavy Press is a really easy fight, but with so little healing, the stress of dying to do all this under 20 minutes, and also the terror in knowing that if you die you're gonna have to do it all over again, it's gonna weigh on you after a while. When you do kill him, scooch over so you don't get crushed by his body. Down here we enter a hallway right before the end. This dog is pleading Balos' innocence. He is asking you to kill him mercifully. Sure. Balos is Jenka's brother. He is the real final boss. He created the magic flow that Misery and I assume Balrog use. He wants me to kill him, which I have no objections towards. Balos' first stage is easy? Well, it's only easy if you have the spur. Break down his pattern and he can go down really fast. The lightning attack is pretty annoying. And like I said, if you didn't get the spur, this is gonna be a way tougher. That's way tougher than the second or third phase. Balos stage 2 is a little confusing, since he turns into a giant ball and tries to crush you. Other than that, this stage is pretty simple. You jump into his eyes and you blast him, although with all the movement, it's gonna get a pretty disorienting. Balos stage 3 is really stressful. Destroying his eyes can take a while, and if you're not careful, he will crush you with them. Watch out for the skulls too. Stage 4 is pure chaos. His eyes start bouncing around, angels are shooting at you from all angles, the floor has become spikes, the spinning platform keeps flip-flopping around, his health bar is too goddamn big for how long I've been fighting him. If there was any place to use the life pot, it's now. It's too late to give up. Balos is the hardest boss, but you have the spur. That's all you really need to win. It's still like 4 hits. And that was Cave Story. Even after everything, the highs, the lows, the fact that I never talked about Chaco, who is my favorite character by the way, it still is in my very flawed and biased mind the greatest video game ever made. Thank you for watching. There's no outro. Goodbye.